Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. I'm your host, Michael Andre Ford, your angel guide and intuitive in San Antonio, Texas. I want to welcome you to a very special guest, originally from Sweden, now in Phoenix, Arizona. Boy, does she have a background to her. Medical school, naturopath, has done a lot. She's got a show, Dr. Lotte, Science with Soul, her show. She's a physician, a psychic medium, ancestral healer, 2 near-death experiences, and much more. She's been, again, on a ton of different shows that you are by now familiar with. A lot of you are already viewers of these shows. Next Level Soul, The Other Side, NDE, Jeff Mara podcast. Jeff lives 3 miles from me in North San Antonio. We have to do a Starbucks coffee. If for any reason he's watching today, a shout out to him. Please check out his show. Also, Suzanne Giesemann's show. I slaughter everyone's name and all the lingo and spiritual terminology. So please, everyone, forgive me today. But as I introduce Dr. Lotte Valentin, I have to thank her for being so gracious for coming on the show. We're a small show, but with a really big footprint because we do have the angels. Guests get to meet them before, during, after the show, if they wish. Lotte, thank you so much for coming on Angels, Positivity, and Love.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Can you share with us one of those really flavorful, pivotal developmental sort of moments in your path as a healer that you still flash back to once in a while today?
Oh my gosh, there's so many different experiences because after I had my near-death experiences in 1992 and 94, I started hearing the spirit world the day after. And then it was just one event after another that sort of guided me for 12 years. So there are many different events, but I'm going to tell you the story of remote viewing. And I was at home in the kitchen. We lived in San Francisco Bay Area at the time, and my kids were going to school in the city. I have 3 kids, but these were the 2 younger ones. And my son was about 16 or 17 at the time. My daughter was about 14. And I'm at home, like, in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, it is as if I'm standing on the street in San Francisco. And I can see my son in the car with my daughter and his girlfriend in the car, sitting at a stoplight, watching the light, waiting for it to turn to go red. And then he's going to make a quick U-turn. So he's just sitting there waiting for the oncoming traffic to slow down. So I see this as if I'm standing on the street, but I'm at home in my kitchen. And as the light is going, from green to yellow, and now it's waiting to go to red. So it's yellow, and he steps on it, whips the car around. But from the opposite direction, there is a big truck coming. But instead of the truck stopping at the turn signal, going from yellow to red, the truck is accelerating. And so as my son whips the car around at the stoplight, I see this truck just stepping on the pedal and going through the light and just barely missing my kid's car by like an inch. I mean, it's right on the tail. And I can see my kid's car speeding off into the distance. And I sat down at that kitchen counter. My heart was pounding for like 10 minutes. I just sat there. I just threw my arms up to the sky and I said, thank you, thank you, thank you, spirit world, for, saving my kids. And then, an hour or two went by and the kids came home. So I didn't say anything first. I said, all right, they're really hungry. I'm going to give them their food, waited for them to finish. And then as soon as my daughter took her last bite, she looks up at me and she says, Mom, we almost got hit by a truck. And my response was, I know, I saw you. And my kid's jaws that's wide open. And it was, how do we connect to that? How can we be connected to something far away at the exact instance that is happening, right? That's quantum physics. So everything is connected.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so what was the fallout? What happened to the kids? Nothing really much after that. Did you have a chat further? Did they already know you were psychic?
Right. So they did know I was psychic at this point because about a year before that, I woke up in the morning. And so they were getting used to this. And I saw 3 images. The first image was a black mark on the van door, on the sliding door where the kids would get in and out. We had a van at the time. The second image I see, again, it's the same two kids, my middle child, who was a boy, and then my younger child, a daughter. And my son was in the front seat, my daughter's in the back seat. And then the third image I saw was me leaving a note on the windshield of a black sedan car. And I told my kids, I said, look, this is what I saw. Where could this possibly be happening? And I was driving them to the city every day because they were going to school in the city. And we figured out I have to make a left turn. We have to have oncoming traffic that's going to be able to hit us on the right side of the car. And going into San Francisco, I mean, you get on the freeway and then you cross the Bay Bridge, you get off the exit, you come down to the light, and we had to jog left onto the surface streets. That was the only intersection on that entire drive that we would have oncoming traffic that could possibly hit us. So for the next 10 days, we get to the city. My kids' noses are literally pressed up against the window, looking out, saying, Mom, the coast is clear. You can go. And, we turn and get to school. And then, about 2 weeks go by. And we're in Walnut Creek, which is East Bay, San Francisco, at the bookstore. And we're coming out of the garage. And I'm trying to squeeze onto this very narrow street. Now, Walnut Creek is a much bigger city. But I was trying to get my car onto this little street. There was lots of cars coming into the parking lot. There was a truck in the way, offloading boxes. And as I'm turning right onto this narrow street, the right-hand side of my car scrapes the car that is parked there. And yes, it was a black sedan car. So I get out of the car, walk around, look at this scratch, which looks exactly the way I had described it to my kids. And at that point, just throw my arms up to the sky and just start laughing because I was so relieved that it was finally over. And all the people that were, people walking and people coming into the parking lot, they were just staring at me. I'm sure they thought I was absolutely crazy, right? But I was so happy that it was over. And then, of course, here I am leaving that note on the windshield of the car saying, I'm sorry I scraped your car. He barely had any damages, by the way. It was like so little. It just barely, scraped off the paint on a very, very small area on that back fender. But of course, my car had a big scratch across the entire door. So the kids were used to hearing me, talk about this. Another time I was cooking in the kitchen and all of a sudden I hear the name of the children's cousin, so my nephew, and he was in college at the time in Colorado. And I hear gallbladder, liver, spleen, gallbladder, liver, spleen. And it wouldn't stop. And, after a while, I'm like, Mike, I keep hearing your cousin's name, gallbladder, liver, spleen. My daughter looks at me and she goes, well, you better call Auntie. And so I pick up the phone, call my sister-in-law, and I say, hey, didn't one of your kids, the one in Colorado, just have his he had appendicitis, so he had his appendix out. And she said, yeah, I just got back home. And they lived on the East Coast in Connecticut. And I said, well, I keep hearing gallbladder, liver, spleen. So I don't know what's up with that. And I keep hearing his name. So she called him and she said, hey, how are you doing? And he said, well, as soon as you left, Mom, I got worse. Literally, she turned around, got on an airplane that day, flew back to Colorado, took him back to the doctor. Turned out he had this huge infection going on. And he ended up losing his gallbladder. I mean, this kid's just in college because of the infection and the quick weight loss and all these different things. So they had to remove his gallbladder. Well, then he finally recovers, and literally a month or two goes by. He's out riding his horse. He was studying like wilderness and wild grasses and things like that. So he's out on his horse, and there is a woman who can't catch her dog. It's off leash. Well, the dog gets spooked by the horse, so he jumps off his horse because he's like the wilderness guy. Catches the dog for the woman, but the horse is not afraid of the dog. Accidentally kicks him. So he gets back on his horse, rides home, and says, wow, I don't feel too good. Goes to the ER, and his spleen has ruptured, and they have to remove his spleen. So that Christmas, when we all got together, I said, you're off my radar. I'm not getting any more messages, so you're going to get to keep your liver. But, all these things just kept happening to me over a period of 12 years until I really knew to trust in the spirit world, because before my NDEs, I didn't believe in the afterlife. I didn't believe in angels. I didn't believe in religion, which I still don't. I believe in divine source. I don't believe that the religious figures per se. Somebody wrote those books, and those were typically men back in the day. We used to, admire goddesses, but that got, pushed away, and then we put all the men in the Bible. So it's the religions that we have are kind of made by the people on earth, and people decided what goes into those books. So divine source, yes, I believe in that.
Well, back to the car, the turning and the mark on the door. I mean, that was written. It was clear that no matter how much preventative steps you were taking, that was going to happen regardless. Jumping forward to now, those are pivotal lessons. How do you describe again, going from, having to kind of feel your way through everything, and then obviously the brain's going to reject it. And I don't know if you're the type that needs it 100 times to hear it's okay, trust more, think less, go with the flow, or just a few times, and you were quick on the uptake. Can you tell us a little bit about, Lotte at the beginning, Lotte in the middle, and today? Because you're still growing. Where are you on the trusting more, allowing more, connection with spirit or source? And can you again chat with us about how much you've learned to trust kind of the currents, the flows?
Right. So yes, I'm a slow learner that way. I needed proof over and over and over again because I was very scientific and I didn't believe in anything. So I mean, from the beginning, the day after my first NDE in the hospital, the first one was in the ER, and I can hear. So I'm still trying to figure out why is it that I could possibly have left my body. And then I hear my sister-in-law talking to me, and she's in the left corner of the ceiling, and she had passed away 10 days earlier. And to me, I was thinking, okay, I cannot tell anybody because they're going to lock me up in the psych ward because I had a hard time understanding what had happened and how could this be, because I didn't have a belief system around it. So it really took me a long time and a lot of proof over and over again with situations like this when I was shown something can change it and then it happens. And I would have to, tell my kids, or I would write it down on a piece of paper, so that I would know that I wasn't having some kind of a deja vu or coincidence, because I could explain it away so easily to coincidence or deja vus. That can't be, because that was my belief before I had my near-death experiences. So really, it took a long time. It took me 12 years to trust in the spirit world, and it started the day after my first NDE. So that's 12 years is a long time to
I'll
learn
ask
to
you about
trust.
that first one in just a second, but as you look back now, have you gotten faster? Let's say something new comes along. Have you gotten faster at talking to yourself and being more accepting of what's being given, so it doesn't take as long for you to accept it? Because I mean, it's always changing, right? It's always
Yeah.
growing, and there's something new that catches you off guard, and you've got to get used to it, right?
You're right. So exactly. I mean, we're always growing, we're always expanding. And, I can't wait to see what I'm going to look like 20 years from now, right? Because it's this constant growth. But the more you open up, the more you receive. So, I mean, my life now, it's just, I have one foot in the spirit world and one foot on earth. It's just my life. I work with the spirit world. Everything I do, it's part of my life. I cannot separate that from who I am now, but it's a long journey to get to that point. So, when you think about it, that 1992, that was a long time ago. That was 31 years ago that I had my first NDE, and my second one 29 years ago. And that growth has been going on ever since then. And so it's constantly expanding, and it's almost like the more you accept it and the more you tune into it, the more will be shown to you.
Mm.
And it's just a matter of quieting ourselves down so that we can hear it. So I've been meditating for probably about 30 years now, right? But it's that constant meditation and the constant quieting, because when you think about the way we operate in the physical world with our senses, we feel things, we hear things, we taste things, we touch things. um, but when you're tuning into another dimension, you're still going to use your physical senses in order to receive that information. But now it's not so readily available like it is in the physical world. So you kind of have to think of it as fine tuning your senses, but you can't hear if it's too noisy. If you turn on the TV and you're going to watch a movie and there's a party next door, you can't hear. You keep turning it up because you can't hear. And then finally the party stops and it gets quiet. and you turn that volume way down because you realize you've been blasting the sound, right? But it's the same when you're tuning into the spirit world. You have to create that quiet within yourself by meditating. And that's when you're going to be start to hearing things or sensing things or feeling things from another dimension, because you have to make that quiet space within you.
Can you take us back to 19? That was beautiful. Can you take us back to 1992? And was there anything before it all happened that you were either working too hard, you were too one-dimensional in your approach to things, you were black and white, it was rinse, repeat, do all over again, and you were being very hard on yourself? Was there any of that, or was this just out of the blue altogether? You were perfectly happy in life and just didn't know
Yes.
there was a major change coming? Give us the setup and then tell us about
Yeah.
the 1992 near-death experience.
I was very happy, happiest moments in my life. I was on a leave from work. I used to be a programmer and systems analyst for IBM. So I was very left brain, right? Very methodical in my approach, very scientific view of life itself. And I was currently a stay-at-home mom because I had a 6-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, and I was giving birth to my third child. And so I was very lucky to be able to be in that situation, to take a couple of years off and stay home with when they were little. And so I was super happy. I was super healthy. I had just studied nutrition, which back then you couldn't even study at a college. It wasn't even part of a college curriculum yet. I studied in this woman's living room who founded this Academy of Nutrition, which was very different because dietitian looks at things very differently than a nutritionist, and learned about, food allergies and how different things can trigger different types of food allergies. And you're working with kids that have ADD, ADHD, or autism. And just by changing the diet, it can really improve their behavior and their learning abilities. So I was super healthy. We were on the cleanest diet, drinking the, reverse osmosis filtered water. We had this little thing on the counter. So I couldn't have been in better shape. I was super healthy. We lived in Southern California at the time in Huntington Beach. And here I am giving birth to my third child, she was actually born between a 7.4 and a 7.2 earthquake. So I was on the labor table contracting about 3 minutes apart, and the 7.4 earthquake hits. And it was in the eastern part of Anaheim. So people who have been to Disneyland, they know Disneyland is in Anaheim, California. So this was on the eastern part of Anaheim, so it bordered the desert. Now, the reason people haven't heard so much about this quake was because it was centered in the desert, so the damage was minimal. But we were in the hospital that was literally bordering the desert. It was like, I swear, the last building before the desert. And it was a new hospital. And so it was built on rollers. So the whole building just rolled from one side to another. And the midwife, my husband, everybody was leaning on top of me on the table because I would have flown off the table. So all the instruments on those little metal trays were levitating up and down. And I'm thinking, it was one of those moments in my life when I thought I was going to die. People have, almost gotten killed in a car accident, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is it. And then somehow you survive, right? So I'm lying on this table and all the windows are shaking, the floor to ceiling windows. And I'm thinking, all right, either the windows are going to cave in or the ceiling tiles are going to start coming down. We're going to be buried in rubble. So it's shaking like crazy. They're leaning over me, and we lost all the power. So, and then the shaking finally stopped, and we had the light of like a night light in this birthing unit. And my labor actually stopped because the fear was so great. So if you're being chased by a lion, you're going to get yourself to safety, and then you're going to give birth. So that's like a mechanism that can happen. So after about half an hour, I start, back up again, give birth to my daughter. Second earthquake hits, the 7.2. And then finally, after that has happened, I finally get to hold the baby because everybody's just scrambling, right? Trying to keep safe. So I get to hold the baby. As soon as I get to hold the baby, I yell to my husband, take the baby, take the baby. Got him so much pain. And that was the first time I hemorrhaged. And so they kept me in the hospital for like an extra day. And they said, okay, it looks like things have calmed down and we're going to send you on your way. Well, 10 days later, I hemorrhaged again. We went to the ER, did a manual inspection, said, nothing much is happening now. And then after 2 or 3 hours said, you can go back home. No blood work, no ultrasound, nothing. Next day in the evening, hemorrhage again. We call the ER and I'm yelling to my husband, I'm not going back. It's 9:30 at night. They're not going to do anything. And it was decided I should see the doctor where we lived the next morning. See the doctor next morning, same thing, manual inspection, no lab work, nothing. Well, it could have been a second lining. I'm going to send you on your way. Sends me home. So now it's Friday afternoon, a hemorrhage again. And we said, all right, well, this is the third day. This can't be another lining. It's the third time. So we go back to the ER. And again, they do a manual inspection. And they say, all right, nothing much is happening now. We're going to keep you for observation. Close the door. And I'm lying on this table. I don't even have a bell to ring. Like I'm just lying there. I start bleeding again. So then at this point, I'm just happy I'm in the ER because I'm like, okay, finally they're going to figure out something's wrong. And then I think this was, one of the angels that sent this nurse to check on me at this particular moment because it's all down to, seconds now. So she opens the door, checks on me, sees how much I've been bleeding. I hear the call on the speaker, OBGYN, stat to the ER. And she quickly cleans up the mess, puts down new paper. This middle-aged physician runs full speed in. And I quickly tell him, he's like, what's going on? And I said, I've been, hemorrhaging. This is the third day I'm hemorrhaging. So again, manual inspection. So him and his assistant do a manual inspection. And as they do that, there's another huge blood clot comes out. And at that point, that's the one that broke the camel's back, right? So I try to sit up and I tell him, I don't feel too good. But he knew, because he knew I had been hemorrhaging for 3 days. So he knows exactly where I'm at. And I can hear the room fill with staff, but I can't keep my eyes open at this point. And they tip the table. So my head goes towards the floor, my feet goes up to the air. And I can hear all the people. And I have a nurse on my right quoting my blood pressure and a nurse on my left trying to get an IV in. But when you go into shock, your veins collapse. It's really hard to get an IV in. So I'm lying on this table and I feel like I'm just free falling, like you jump out of an airplane without a parachute, just free fall. And then I hear the nurse on the right and she yells, 50/15, hurry. And that's my blood pressure. So, and it
Wow.
was shortly after that that I knew that I was dying. And knowing that I was dying is very different from that experience I had during birth when I thought I was going to die. Very different. I knew I was dying at this point. And all I can think is, what's taking this nurse so long? Why can't she get that IV? Because I could feel her on my arm. And then it was just, I kept just having this falling sensation. But then I started noticing I was separating out. And so there was something that started to leave my body. And at that point, I said to myself, okay, if there is a God, this is my only hope left. If there's anything out there. And so I pleaded with God and I said, I have 3 children under the age of 6. Please let me live. They need a mother. And then shortly after that, I got sucked out of my body. And then here I am outside my body. But the first thought I have is, how can I be outside my body and still be me? How does this work? Right? Because I had no beliefs whatsoever. To me, it was like, you die, it's black, you're gone. So here I am outside my body, and I know my body is down there on the table, but in this state, right? There it is just peace and unconditional love, and there is nothing to. There's absolutely no pain, right? There's absolutely no pain to go to this state. You just separate, and then you're outside, but there's no time. So that I knew that I had access to past, present, and future information all at the same time. There is no time in this state. There's only a time when I'm in my body. Now, so the way we perceive time when we have this physical experience is different from time on the other side, because on the other side, we can just access everything. So I wasn't outside my body that long. And so I never left the room. And so I always joke that they saved me too quickly. And that's why I had to have my second experience and get the full effect. So I get sucked into my body and, and then stayed in the hospital. And then that next day I started hearing the spirit world.
I was just grabbing a piece of paper before the show. There are two quotes from Geronimo. The past, future are human constructs, and time is a construct of the mind, he once said. So I thought that was very interesting. And for some reason, I grabbed it before the show. I
Right.
love the way you tell stories, and not just stories, but major, massive, really important developmental experiences. Whoa. I mean, I needed a seatbelt. The sight of blood. I could have never been a doctor or a soldier. It's a lot for me. Okay, summing it up today, because we're still going to go to your other near-death experience, what are the three most important takeaways, or five, or two, for daily living for everyone who just heard that? How can they walk out the door? They've left their office, they've left their studio, they've left their bedroom where they just watched the entire show, or one of your other shows again on Next Level Soul, Jeff Mara podcast. How can they allow more, love more, and just slow down a little, out of here, get to hear and appreciate life more? What's your big picture advice?
The big picture advice, it's funny because when people ask me this, I always get different answers. I just go with the spirit world. But what they gave me today was to let people know that everything is always as it should be. That's the message I got when you asked me. So it is that there is a certain divine component to our existence, and sometimes we don't see that, but I call it the divine clock. Right, it's everything is supposed to happen at a certain specific time, just like that nurse came to check on me at that specific moment. And as I have developed spiritually over all 31 years, there's always a divine time to everything. It doesn't matter. You can't rush things, right? Sometimes I want to be, I want to do this, or I want to be able to communicate better. I want to tune into my spirit guides. Well, you might, in your contract, the way I look at it, that might happen. You signed up for that, but it's not going to happen until, March 3rd, 2029 at 12:36 p.m. That's when you're going to get your first message. So, and now you're just doing the preliminary work. But there's always a right time for everything. And even when things go wrong, there are reasons why things go wrong too. And, we lose our jobs, and then we're pushed in a new direction. We go back to school, and then now we're happier than ever because we're actually fulfilling our life path. But if you weren't pushed to your limit in relationships or work or whatever it is, that would never happen. You would never step into that, right? So if you incarnated to step into your full potential and support yourself in this life, because in all your other lives you were subservient and people kind of ruled above you, right? You had to do what you were told. And in this life now you've gathered all this experience and you're supposed to step into your own power. But if you're doing really well financially, you're happily married, you're completely supported, you go on vacation all the time, you're not going to fulfill that life path. No, you have to be pushed to the limit. Your spouse may leave you, go to the other side. You might go through a divorce, and all of a sudden you have to go down a new path. But that once you're on that path, and once things start falling into place, then you realize that you're happier than you have ever been before. But there's always things that push us to do things, but it seems sometimes like, why is this happening to me? Right, when things don't go well, why can't it be like Betty down the street? She seems happy, she's got a Mercedes. And I'm saying, like, we always look at other people and we think that they have it easier, but everybody has obstacles to overcome in their life. And sometimes it looks on the surface like people have it easier than you, but I can assure you everybody has issues. Everybody has ancestral issues they're carrying, and wounds and things they have to heal in this life and overcome. That's part of the human experience. And it's just a matter of remembering that when you have these obstacles, it's just another hurdle. It's just another hurdle that I'm here to overcome in my life. And once you overcome that hurdle, and sometimes they seem just impossible, you're thinking like, why? What is this? But once you're over that hurdle, then you have this whole new experience and you become a very different person, and things start falling into place. But it's just getting over those.
Okay, we're going to talk about ancestral healing in a little bit, your other near-death experience in a little bit. I wanted to ask, this is a philosophical question. There may not be an answer for this one. And this is because you brought it up about the whole, time as a construct of the mind. It's here when you're in the body, but angels, we just are, there is no time, is what they've said, and so on. So it's much more of a unified cosmos, whatever you want to call it. But when it comes to past lives, how do you have a way to say this? And if not, it's okay. But I mean, this has been floating around for like a year now. Your past lives, to us, they're past lives, but in a way, they're kind of concurrent. So the best I can do to try to say this is the more you love right now, right here, the more you ripple and might even bleed into other areas, quadrants of the universe, your soul, if you want to consider it little sparks of light from a bigger you that are experiencing a lot of things all at once. I don't know. Do you have a way to explain any of that? Or is it just way too, are past lives past lives? Are they concurrent? Lotte, what do we do with this?
Right. Good question. So I would say past lives are past lives the way we experience life in this dimension. So we incarnate to come into this human form and have different lives where it appears that they are at different lifetimes, right? So, I mean, are they all concurrent? Who knows? But when you have memories of past lives, or memories of past lives that happened, 5, 6, 700 years ago. And so that was in that I was that person in that lifetime. And now I'm this person in this lifetime. And the way I look at it is you remember things, right? So you got your body, you got your soul, you got your spirit. And so the soul is kind of the thing in between the spirit and the body. But the soul remembers the past lives. And so you bring all those seeds, the things I call them the seeds. So you bring all the seeds of the things that you learned in your past life. And so you put that in your little seed bag. And then you come into this life and you got your seed bag with you for everything that you learned in the other lives. And so you keep planting all these seeds, right? So they can grow. And that's your experience. You already have that garden with you. All those seeds are with you. And now you're going to expand your garden. You're going to learn even more. And so when you leave this life, you have still the seeds that you brought with you into this life, plus all the new things that you planted in this life goes also into your seed bag. And then you go to the next life. And so you keep growing through each life. And so when you talk about, what you send out is what comes back, I would say that's very true because we are all connected, right? And that comes from my second NDE, the understanding of the fact that we are connected and ancestral healing, which is what led me to ancestral healing. But we are all connected to each other, and we're connected to the spirit world and to the animals, to the trees, to the plants. We are part of the earth. We don't live on top of the earth. We are part of the earth. So if you look at your body, and you have all these trillions of cells inside your body, right? And you got all these different organs, your liver, your heart, your spleen, all these different organs. Now look at the earth. So what if we are the blood cells to the earth? All these millions and trillions of people, we're the blood cells of the earth. And the different continents, Africa is your liver, United States is your heart, Australia is your spleen, right? We're part of the earth, and we're connected to everything on the earth, and that includes everything. We're connected to the oceans, to the mountains, to all the animals, right? We are all connected to each other, and we're connected to all the people. We are only one human race. We're all in the same boat, right? And then we're connected to all of our ancestors in the spirit world, but we're also connected to the angels, to the spirit guides, to the other planetary systems, to other life forms in other galaxies. We are part of all of that, and we are connected to all of that. And so, we are in an era right now where we're raising consciousness, and people are becoming more aware. And part of that is the technology. We have access to this information, and we're all tuning in, and we're raising our consciousness because we're all starting to understand that we're part of something greater. So, how long is it going to take us to stop all these wars and all the greed and start working together as a human race on the planet Earth for the benefit of the human race, the animals, and the Earth itself?
Mm. Okay, two quick yes or no questions. These are layups because you've already kind of, I think, said it or hinted at it. But first, do angels exist?
Yes.
Okay. Second, is love the fabric of the universe?
Yes.
Now, second one, can you tell us why, how, is it, maybe it's your near-death number 2 experience, but can you tell us how big it is without crying, yelling, cheering, singing suddenly? Because it's big. But how would you communicate it to us, especially someone who hasn't gone through a near-death experience? They're not quite sure about this whole spirituality thing. How can they just trust what they got right here, the connection to all there is? What do you do with all this? Love, love, love,
Right.
love, love.
Right. I would say it's always to, put your best foot forward. And the way you treat other people is also how they're going to treat you back. Right. Unless you're dealing with personality disorders. But in general, if you're nice, if you hold up the door for somebody, they're most likely going to be saying, wow, thank you. I really needed that today. Right. Or just being kind to someone. I mean, how many times do you hear stories that somebody said something kind to them and they had the worst day in their life and it just changed their whole day? Right? Or people that could be suicidal and you just say something, oh, have a great day, love your smile on your face or something that's cheerful, right? And it changes that person. Now that person is not going to commit suicide because all of a sudden they felt that love from you, right? So it's all about the love and the connection and gratitude for each other, for the planet Earth.
Okay. Following that, how can we again find a way to, this is what you help people with, but when they're on their own, how can they cultivate a deeper sense of awareness? Is it meditation, as you were starting off the show with? What are your basic suggestions? It could be books, movies, just getting out in nature, but what are your patented Lati, recommendations?
Right. I would say number one is always going to be meditation because that is how you're going to start tuning into creating awareness for that you cannot readily see when you're functioning and keeping yourself alive in this human body that you experience life through, right? So it's just a matter of quieting things down and tuning in to things because people can just sit in meditation literally and become psychic or tuning in and getting messages or hearing things from the spirit world.
I had a quote for you. I've been looking for it. Allow angels, love, and compassion into your world. This would be angels talking, if you can allow for that, or anybody out there allowing for this. Step towards compassion for self and others. There's healing in listening and loving in each moment. The more you do it, the more you progress and expand consciously and more. Sometimes the person next to you or a stranger just needs validation via love and compassion. A smile changes any moment, so too does laughter or a few kind words. Be compassionate to all, do it. Which reminded me of, it was what you were just telling us about that stranger or just even a wave to someone. And that might not be your thing. It's hard for us in a big city, very hard for us to go out of our way we normally operate. So, and it's that small stuff. I'll say it differently. Kindness counts, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely it does. Kindness counts because it's all, everybody wants to be seen and heard, right? We all want to be recognized and it can be the smallest thing.
Mm.
Right. So in San Francisco, going across the Bay Bridge, many times you pay the tolls for the guy behind you, right? And so then when you get up to the toll window, they're like, "Oh, the guy ahead of you paid for you," and you're like, "Wow!" And then you pay for, you pay your toll and say it's for the person behind me, and it goes on, and it's just, we all paid our tolls, but it was my toll was paid by the guy in front of me. I don't even know who that person is,
Hmm.
right? But it's just this acts of kindness, and then you do it for somebody else. It's like you go to Starbucks and the person in front of you paid for your coffee and you get up there and you're like, really? And you're like, wow, thank you. And then you're looking to see who's behind you and you're like, I'm paying for that person. Right. And it's just kind of, and it's fun things and it changes the way you look at life because, you do a kind act for somebody else, but that changes too, because when you give kindness, you feel different and you get kindness in return.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to your healing aspects because you're a healer. And before the show, like I was asking, do you do your hands? And you were like, nope, nope. I just like connect to the spirit world and it's bam, it's direct. So we're gonna make sure you cover that as well. But can we get into like nitty gritty? And this isn't important in one sense because it's how you roll and it's just the way you do it. But do you see auras? Do you feel auras? Do you only see auras on Tuesday? Or are you like some of us? It's only twice a year, or I mean, there are people out there like I've never seen an aura or light on anything, but also the spirit world. Do you full on see daytime, but would it be out in the yard, passed over loved ones, angels, and others? Is it up close and personal, or is it mind's eye? Can you give us some flavor wherever you're comfortable sharing? on either the frequency, how it works for you, because everyone's different, and they also, every personality is different. So they also treat what they're going to allow themselves to experience differently, because we're each unique individuals and so on. Lati, how's it work for you?
Right. So I would say you train yourself to become, more receptive. The way it works for me is in the beginning, I would feel or hear the information. So the spirit world would come through, and I would know it's my uncle that's passed on and coming to say goodbye, right? Wouldn't see him at that point. And this is back like 1993 after my first NDE. And so all that started right away. Now, what it has become, because I have studied mediumship over in England at Arthur Findlay College, which is the most renowned college for psychic sciences in the world. So I've spent several weeks over there studying mediumship, and you learn to sort of sort that information. How do you receive the information? How do you know it's not coming from your head? How do you know you're talking to the spirit world? And then learning the steps to that sorting process. So it's a bit of a sorting process to sort of tune into that. The way I connect with the spirit world, it's not like I walk around my house and this, I see angels and spirits all over. No, I'm not connected. I'm disconnected. I'm working in the physical world right now, right? So I'm not going to be tuned into that because I'm having a conversation with you. Now, if I'm working with somebody, if I'm working like, let's say, ancestral healing, then at the end, I'm going to take you on a meditation journey, which is a combination of trance healing, working with the spirit world, and shamanism combined into one journey, because it's just what my life has become. That's how I work with the spirit world when I do things like that. And we do a soul to soul communication with the people that have caused the issues for this person and why they're having the issues that they're dealing with. But then I set up with the spirit world. I work with the light beings, the archangels, and the ancestors and the spirit guides. And then I'll see different things depending on who it is I'm working with, who's going to come in, what they're going to do. And I set that up. So that's kind of a trance healing where you're connecting with the spirit world, but you actually step away. You're not the one who's facilitating the healing. You are the link in the healing. So I'm the one who sets up the spirit world. They work through me, but I'm not involved. I don't sit there and say, oh, do this, do that. No, I can set the intention ahead of time, but you stay. As soon as you interfere, you're now hindering the spirit world, right? It's the same thing when you work as a medium. As soon as you start asking all the questions, tell me how you died, tell me about this, tell me where you lived. We're bombarding them with questions instead of saying, okay, why did you come in? What is your message to this person? Who are you? Right? Because we have to allow, they're the ones that are going to communicate with us. I don't dial up and say, okay, we want to talk to mom in the spirit world. No, I have no idea who's going to come through. We are not the people who decide that. The spirit world decides who is going to come through and speak to the client today, right? If you want to talk to your mom, that might not happen. It might be grandma, or it might be aunt, or it might be a sister or a nephew. It can be somebody completely different. So the first time I went to Arthur Findlay College, it wasn't my mom, my dad, my grandma, grandpa that came through. It was my father-in-law. And the reason he came through first was because he was the best person to deliver the message that needed to be delivered. The spirit world knows that I was going to listen to him delivering the message better than if it came from my mom or my dad, right? So it's very interesting because they are the ones that decide, but it's the same when I work. You don't interfere. They're the ones that are doing the healing, and I'm just the link. That's how I look at it. I set things up, and I know when they pull away. I sometimes see them when they're working. And then they pull away. They say, okay, we're done. This is it for today. And so the healing could be, 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I just have to wait until I get the notification from the spirit world saying, okay, we're moving out. But I know that, how do I know that I'm doing the right thing? Right. That's what I would ask, because I'm scientific. Like, well, how would you know? How would you know? How do you know that's not your head, or you're imagining this whole process? Because when I studied trance healing at Arthur Findlay College, so I studied mediumship and trance healing over there, we would sit in meditation, oh my gosh, for a whole week, doing trance healing. You have no idea. If you've been in trance for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, you have no idea because you're sitting there with your eyes closed doing what the teacher is telling you. But I always knew when the spirit world came in, I know when they're working, I could feel them, I sense them. And then every time I could feel, okay, they're done, they're moving out. And then literally within 5 seconds, the teacher would say, okay, it's time to come back. And so I know that when I sense that or see that they're moving out, that is correct because, 50 times of this experience and I'm right every single time. And then the teacher says, time to come back. And it could be, an hour or 20 minutes. I never knew when it was going to end. So I know that the information is correct, but these are the different things you have to go through, right? To train yourself, because how do you know that you're getting that information that is correct? It's coming from the spirit world and not your brain. And I think that's the hardest thing in the beginning. And that's a sorting process for everybody. Every single medium goes through that training saying, oh, I got that wrong. Oh, but now I know why, because the way I got that information was different. It came to my brain in a different way. Now I know that's my brain if I get the information that way. But if I get it this way, I know it's from the spirit world because every time I get it that way, it's correct. Right. And so it's like I tell people it's like a sorting toy for toddlers. The round peg goes in the round hole, the square peg goes in the square hole. It's like that. You're learning to sort out the information that you're receiving so that you know where is this information coming from? Is it coming from me or is it coming from the spirit world?
Arthur Findlay College, you're our third guest. We had two last year, and one was Mark Lanehart, who has a show out of Seattle, I believe, but he was 2020 Psychic of the Year. He spent a lot of time in that show for people who want to hear it. I think, again, episode 4, maybe January or February of 2023. But definitely he described how rigorous it was. The professors, there's no pushovers. These are veterans, and it's grueling, and it makes even Harry Potter look like easy walk in the park. And
Yes.
also, I think that building had a lot of architectural significance to it. 365 windows, maybe, to signify the days and the year or something like that. Did I get that kind of right?
Yeah, I can't remember, but I'm sure there's something like that. I mean, you go to that college, it looks like Hogwarts, right? It's a joke when you go there, it's like you're going to Hogwarts.
Yep.
But I mean, that college is filled with spirits. So it is quite an experience, and the spirits come in to help teach, right? It's fascinating, and there are people that meet spirits in the hallways in the middle of the night.
Mm.
Um, so it's filled with spirits, that place,
So
and it's rigorous. I mean, it starts at 9 in the morning. You work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, and you are absolutely exhausted. It is not a vacation. It is hardcore training. It's like nonstop.
they make you literally go to the center of the room and demonstrate in front of
Yep.
everybody else. And they're
Yep.
literally, the professor will shoot you down or say, good job, very rarely
Yep.
good job. And you keep doing it, doing it, doing it until
Yep,
you're
exactly.
top gun,
There's,
basically.
you're typically 12 to 16 people in each group. And there's, when I go, it's only mediumship. Sometimes they split, they have some other class going on. So you're, like 100 students there at the same time. And yeah, they will, they'll say, okay, you're up next. And you gotta leave the room sometimes. So you come back in and you're going to be pulling in a spirit for, like they'll put the chairs in a circle. They'll put one chair in the middle of the circle. And then they might say, okay, Lottie, you go out in the hallway. I got in the hallway. Somebody sits in that chair while I'm in the hallway. And then when I come back in, that chair is now empty again. That person has rejoined the circle. And then the teacher will say, okay, bring in the spirit for the person who sat in a chair when you were out of the room. And then you got to bring in a spirit that person can recognize and say, yeah, that is my dad. He did work in an office. He worked with papers. He had higher education. He was very funny and he was very outgoing and he loved motorcycles. Yeah, that's my dad. All right, now what's the message? And so you have to like say, things about that person. You can't just say, oh, I have your grandma here and she loves you. Right? No, you got to say something that person recognizes about so they know that you're talking to that particular person. It's got to be something that ties it to that.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's very rigorous, that training. And so you really should love mediumship or want to connect with the spirit world. Um, but the training is amazing. Though you can't just teach at Arthur Findlay College. Those are veterans. They're the top mediums in the world. They have, done thousands of demonstrations like that in front of large groups and getting all the information correct. So,
okay. Were there a couple of instances that were so profound or obvious or like a slap in the back of the head to get you to literally cut the questioning, the resistance, the being up here to accept it? Was it spirit animals? Was it guides? Was it angels? Was it not about those categories? Because you were always stuck on the fact that animals could have spirit or angels. I mean, we find as humans, I mean, trust me, if there's 7 billion people, there are trillions of thought forms of resistance. It could be about sushi. I don't like sushi, but everyone else likes sushi. And guess what? It's a lot of thinking going on. It's not love. It's not reality. Talk to us about how you had to get almost dunked in some water to allow. Like there must have been a couple moments where you were being, Lotte, more scientist, more here's how I thought it was. And there's no way it could be the way I'm getting it. And that you needed almost like a ridiculous reminder. 3 nights in a row brushing your teeth, you look in the mirror and it's your uncle saying Lotte in Swedish. Get with it. Come on, take the chance. What was it that you still laugh about today that was a swift kick in the...
yeah, right. There was not one moment because I feel I'm so stubborn and so scientific. I just needed to have constant things that had to happen in my life where I would write things down and then say, okay, well, I can't change it, over and over again for 12 years until I knew that when I get a message this way, I know to trust it. Right. And I mean, it's come to the point where, was back like in 2017. And so I had just started studying at Arthur Findlay College because I graduated from med school 2016. Um, and I'm about to drive down to Phoenix because I lived up in the mountains at that point doing my residency. And as I'm grabbing the purse off the counter, all of a sudden I see a big red truck, and I see there are mountains on the side. So I know it's the 17 freeway that once you get on the main freeway, it's the one that goes between Flagstaff and Phoenix. Um, and I saw a red truck, and then I saw the truck swerve into the left lane and then back into the right lane. And the message was, "Watch out for the red truck." So I grab my purse and I just say, "Thank you, Spirit World. Thank you for the warning." And I go to the car, drive 40 minutes, get to the big freeway where I had seen the truck because I knew it was that freeway because the mountains are up on both sides of the freeway. So I'm, driving along in the left lane and, watching for this red truck if it's going to show up, white truck, black truck, another white truck, gray truck. And all of a sudden I come up on a red truck. So the red truck is in the right lane. I'm in the left lane. There is a car that's currently passing the red truck. When you're just going on the freeway, you're just going to hang on behind each car. You just kind of follow the flow of the traffic. But because of that warning, I said, okay, I'm not going to go next to him. I'm going to wait for the car in front of me to clear and make sure he's all the way in front of the truck. I'm going to wait for the guardrail to end so that if he swerves, I have somewhere to go, like I have a shoulder. And so I was just hanging behind the truck, so I wasn't in his way should he swerve. Waited and waited and waited. Okay, so the car now is finally in front of the truck. I'm behind the truck, but I'm waiting to get more clearance. So, and a good spot where I would have, a shoulder on my left as well. So as I'm behind the truck, what happens? The red truck completely swerves out in the left lane and then back in the right lane. And I'm like, again, thank you, Spirit World. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because I would have been dead or at least in a bad car accident. But, so these are, I would say, so at that point, right now it's 2017, it started in 1992. But when I hear something or I know to listen, right? I always listen. And it's the same when I work with people. If I'm doing medical intuitive session with somebody, I always ask before the session. I say, okay, what's wrong with this person? And then I wait for them to show up. And then they start talking about, I got all these, food allergies and I got IBS and all these different diagnoses, but nothing ever works. And, can you tune into and see if there's something they keep missing? And then I'll say, well, do you have these symptoms? Because the spirit world keeps telling me, you have this disease. And then they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I do. I have all of that. Okay, well, that's what's causing all these symptoms and all these other things. And so sometimes it's like that. So it's fascinating because I feel people are drawn to me. There's a reason they sign up for a session because they feel called to work with me. But the people, just like that nurse opened the door in the ER, if she hadn't opened the door, I would have been dead, right? But it was that timing. But it's the same when we're drawn to work with people. We're drawn to them for a reason. And I would say it's because for some reason I have the information they need, right? Because that's why they're drawn. They feel guided. Sometimes people show up on my screen and they say, I'm not really sure why I signed up, but I just felt really drawn to have a session with you. And then, of course, there's something that comes out of that they might not even be aware of. And then we say, okay, well, you have this ancestral wound. Let's create healing for that. Or, oh, you have this issue. So it's interesting because I feel we are all guided. We're all guided all the time. It's just that I was always guided before I had my near death experience. I just didn't know how to tune into it. I didn't know I was. I thought I had the illusion of being independent in the world and not connected to anything because that is the illusion we're under.
Mm.
But then the more we tune in, the more guidance we get and the more divine we understand that our existence is.
Okay, I'm going to blow some sage your way. I'm going to light it. It's a staple of the show. I do it for all the different guests. Again, Lorna Byrne in Ireland did not smell sage. So I was like, oh, except she's like, I smell daisies and roses. We did this before the show. And then with your permission, after that, we'll have you talk about your second near-death experience. But we're going to do a little we'll call it a spiritual break. So I'm going to light some sage. It's a little bit of cedar in there. I grabbed from the bottom of the bag, but it's Juniper Ridge either way. I think you could get it at the Whole Foods stores these days. Very consistent, good California company. I got a link on my website. I am not affiliated or an associate with the Amazon program. I'd like to be. I will at some point. So I only have one rule, bit of structure in all this. Just let angels do their jobs. The universe, ask them to make it nice. Out of your head, into your heart, catch some sage. Let me light that a little more. And instead of just sage, get some flowers on top of that, like sage and flowers. If there's no limits in life and you knew it as a kid and you knew it on the other side, maybe floating in the room, you're like, whoa, love. Then let angels do their job and catch sage, catch flowers. And if you want to go crazy, go for the trifecta, catch your favorite beach, but you haven't had it in a while. You can't be living in Puerto Rico and you're smelling the Puerto Rican beach. That doesn't count. It's got to be the Azores, Seychelles, Bethany Beach in Delaware. Okay, Lottie, what are you getting in? First of all, you're in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm in Texas. What are you getting through two computer screens?
Oh, the smells?
Yeah.
I'm getting lilies of the valley flower.
Okay, good. And then if you'll close your eyes, can you get a special gift from your crew? Just saying thank you for being so open with us today. It could be ocean, it could be a mountain view, it could be river, it could be Sweden, something. Or if you don't want to close your eyes, whichever way is good for you to get one extra oomph of love and light. But something that it wasn't just sage and a zany host of Angels, Positivity, and Love. Please be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment. What has Lotte already said that you're like, whoa, that resonated with me? Be sure to check out her show again, Science, Dr. Lotte Valentin, Science with Soul, her podcast. She's had a lot of amazing guests on. Lotte, what are you getting? Anything extra on top of sage and flowers?
In terms of a message for the listeners?
That or anything else? Anything at all?
I mean, when you were talking, I got that everybody just trust in your own path because everybody's on the right path. It doesn't seem like we are sometimes, but trust in that. Trust in your own abilities, trust in your own path.
Beautiful. Okay, do you want to take us back to the second near-death experience, if you could?
Right. So the second near-death experience happened 2 years after the first one. And as a result of the first one, I ended up with a bone marrow suppression. So I was really sick and had covered in bruises and no immune system. I went to the walk-in clinic at Christmas because we were all sick and had pneumonia. And everybody was getting well after the first time we had been there, but I was getting sicker. And so I went back and they took my blood and they came back in and they said, you're really sick. You have to go to the ER. You have no immune system whatsoever. Do you have AIDS or leukemia? And I said, well, I hope neither. So they gave me all the antibiotics and called me the next day. I was slowly but surely improving. Then 5 months went by, and again, I had pneumonia, and it was May in Huntington Beach. People typically don't get pneumonia that time of the year unless you have an underlying issue. And I had a bruise that covered my entire hip area that was purple and red. I had bumped into the baby's changing table, something that would give you a bruise the size of a nickel. And the doctor didn't believe me at first. He thought that our husband was abusing us and ripped off the t-shirts on all my kids that were now 7, 4.5, and 1. And I said, look, I'm telling you the truth. I said, it's going to sound funny, but 6 months ago, I wouldn't have been able to drive myself here today. And so I know something is wrong. My dad was a physician. My mom was a hospital floor administrator. I grew up hearing the medical stories, and I know something is wrong with my blood. But my husband was in a new job and we didn't have insurance. And I said, we're going to get insurance in 6 weeks. So if I go now, they're going to not give me insurance. They're going to have a pre-existing condition. So I lived with this bone marrow suppression. So it took a couple of years to get over it. But I was slowly, getting better. So we ended, there was no like medical interference in the end because I was slowly progressing towards health. But when I was 2 years out, I still couldn't stand up in the kitchen. I had a stool in the kitchen in order to cook for my kids. I couldn't, because if I stood up too long, I'd pass out. I could not go through the grocery store. I would have to sit down, put my head down between my legs. I had people come up to me in the grocery store saying, are you going to pass out because you are really, really pale right now? And I'm thinking, no, I got about 30 more seconds before I have to sit down because it was my existence at that time. So I was really sick. So that was my existence. So I always had this feeling of my soul also leaving my body, which is kind of it's almost like they didn't merge. I joke that it's a merging issue. It didn't merge. It didn't go back into its correct slot because I always had this feeling of my soul leaving my body. And also as I was walking this fine line, right, that I was much sicker than I realized because I hadn't gone to medical school yet. So I didn't understand how sick I was. Anyway, so I'm in this position where, I feel like my soul is leaving. I'm bending over trying to help my kids with their shoes and constantly saying, okay, we're not leaving. We're staying here and holding on to my soul. And I would wake up in the middle of the night and my head would be pounding because I didn't have enough blood in my head and take my head off the pillow, etc. So this happens in the middle of the night. And for the longest time, I had such a hard time even sharing the story because I'm so scientific. I'm like, the first near-death experience happened in the ER. I know, I have proof, I have medical records if if I needed to. There were doctors there. The second one happened in the middle of the night. But it took me a really long time to say, okay, it doesn't really matter if it was a spiritually transformative experience or if it was a near-death experience. Now, it's more likely it was a near-death experience because I was so sick at the time, right? And now I know from astrologers that I've looked in my chart, and somebody just told me like a week or two ago, said, you had most likely you had more near-death experiences, but you just don't remember them because they can see it in the astrological chart. So here I am in the middle of the night. Same thing happens. I wake up, my head is pounding, and I feel like my soul is leaving. And again, so it's that same feeling I had in the ER. So I'm holding on to my soul. But again, it's just that split second, 1 second you're inside the body and the next second you are not. And that transition happens so quickly that I don't know, I don't have any words to describe it because it's just like a split second. But this time I'm just tumbling through darkness. So think like a spaceship, like Star Wars flying through space. That's the feeling. And I get to this place that I call the mid station because I had the awareness that there were like floors above me and floors below me or levels. So it's like you go into a skyscraper and it has 100 floors and you push the button on the 50th floor and you get off on the 50th floor. You're going to see what's on this floor because you are on that floor. But there's floors above you and there's floors below you, but you don't know what's on those floors, right? Because you're on this floor. It was that kind of a feeling. So I get to this place and I hear the most beautiful music, music that you cannot make on the earth plane. And I tried because I played piano as a child and we had this big synthesizer. I think it had over 200 sounds. I sat at that synthesizer every day for a week, could I find one sound that sounded like the music I heard? There was nothing that came close to it because it was more beautiful than the music you can make here. So I hear the most beautiful music and I'm wondering where this music is coming from. So I look to my right and I see this little log cabin, almost like a Swedish sauna. I mean, it's a little tiny log cabin. So I just laugh at, what we experience and what we see. But so that's what I see. So I look inside, but the log cabin is empty. So I look to my left and I open the door on the cabin on my left and look inside, but it's empty. So then I become aware of this bright white light. So it's almost like you're standing in a fog or standing in a cloud and you're shining a spotlight through it. So when you're standing in fog, that fog is all around you. But imagine standing in thick fog that has spotlights in it. So that's the kind of feeling. It's very bright white light, but it's everywhere because you're surrounded, you're in it, just like you would be in a dense fog. And so then I turn around and I see an outline of angels in this bright light. But I have an awareness of what the fact that I'm seeing angels, and I don't believe in angels because but for 2 years I've been trying to understand my first near-death experience, and all these weird things are happening, and the spirit world's talking to me, right? And so now I see angels, and I'm completely aware of the fact that I see angels, and the music is coming from the angels. So it's like like an angelic choir. But that light, so the divine source of this bright white light, that is divine source. That is, God or whatever you want to call it. That is what we come from. We are part of that light, and we carry that light within us. And that light is just pure unconditional love. So we come from this source of just pure unconditional love, but then we incarnate in this human form and have this human experience, and we forget all about that. But that is who we are, and that's where we come from, and that's why the world is all about love, because that's really the source we come from. But then I become aware of two spirit guides, and the one on the right talks to the one diagonally to the left in front of me, and he says, "What is she doing here? She can't be here. She has to go back." And I'm like, no, wait a second. How can this be? How can I be outside my body and still be me? It's been 2 years now of me trying to figure this out. And the guide on my left says, if I told you, you wouldn't remember, but you will remember this. And so what they showed me next is my work today, right? So it has been guiding me since then, since 1994, has been guiding my life path. And so all of a sudden, it's like I'm standing on the moon and I'm looking down on Earth. But around the Earth, what I see is something that looks like a silvery, glittery fishnet. So it's like a diamond shaped grid, right? Now you can just Google grid around the Earth. This is 1994. There was no Google. We couldn't Google these things back then. So I called it the silvery, glittery fishnet because I grew up in Sweden. And in the summers, I spend my time on this island with no electricity or running water, not even a payphone. And my grandmother would lay fishnets in the ocean, and I would row this little boat. Finally graduated, finally got the pride of rowing the boat because I had three older brothers. And I was big enough to row this boat. And when she took the fishnets out of the ocean, they're kind of diamond shaped. But the little water droplets on the fishnet, they sort of sparkle in that morning sun. So what I'm seeing, is that was my best analogy of it's like a fishnet and it's around the earth, but it's got that kind of shimmering, glittery around the earth. And then he said, everything on earth is connected to each other, but everything on earth is connected up to this grid. And with that information, I got sent back. And honestly, that has not made sense until starting about 2017. And this experience was in 1994. So I had to go through all these different constant learning to start trusting in the spirit world and knowing that when I received information, I need to listen. So, but now that is my work today.
Yay, I like it. Okay, what else would you like to share with us? There's a million definitions of compassion. There's trillions of layers of just opening and growing. And as soon as you think you're done, you're just stuck again up here thinking, if you yell enlightenment or anything else. What's a fun definition of compassion for you? how do you phrase it? Or, and I'll throw out one, you know, trust all with kindness and love. And I'm borrowing from an angel named Millicent on that one. So I'll get a little cheat sheet over there of endless definitions of compassion. But what's your definition of compassion, and how can we just trust more to know that that is what we're in when we're allowing more and loving more? Like, it's a big reach, and yet it's only from here to here, and it's not even that. It's just thinking, being in your heart, let go. But it all sounds like a lot of words. So, Lotte, what do we do with this?
Right. I mean, in my book, the way I end my book is it's about the connection, right? So we are all connected, and so we are all one, right? But everything is divine, but so are you. So we are all part of that divine light. We are all connected, and it's all about love. But when we have a moments when we want to yell at the driver in front of us, remember, you're connected to that person. You are connected to that. And the anger that you are going to send out by yelling at that person is also what's going to boomerang back to you, because because we're all connected, what you send out is also what's going to come back. So if you want more love in your life, then you have to send love out to other people. Start commenting and showing gratitude to other people. All of a sudden, you're going to receive more gratitude and love back, because what you send out, it's like going into a room and somebody is really mad and angry. That person is angry. Walking into the room, you can feel it, like static electricity, right? You feel the anger in the room. So, but it's the same with everything that you do. You send anger out, you're going to get anger in return. You send love and gratitude out, you're going to get more love and gratitude in return.
Lottie, okay. Now, this isn't to put you on this in the spotlight here, and don't answer it if it's not phrased correctly, but you've been angry at least once since 1994, and you've known better, and you've known better and better and better as time's gone by. Have you had a moment where you weren't thinking, you had a short fuse, maybe not a lot of sleep, and you did get angry? It could be over the phone, customer service, this, that. You were really counting on this one thing. But then afterwards, was it kind of like a hangover where you're like, whoa, at any other point in my life, I wouldn't have had this much of a ripple effect. And you rippled so much, you were like, whoa, I got a note to self, post-it note. I don't want to ever do that again. That was a lot, because you felt it almost immediately after. Can you talk about that a little? Is that something that you knew better? You were, one way flowing, and then you just did the human thing by accident, and bam, you felt it for days, or you kept flashing back. You're like, wow, maybe I could send an apology note or something, because you were like, I really knew better. I mean, I don't know how to say it, but you get what I'm asking, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
everybody gets, we're human.
Yeah.
So, we can't, so of course we can't just stuff our emotions down either, because then we become a doormat, right? You have to create your own boundaries, but you can create boundaries in a healthy manner. So it's learning how to create boundaries, learning when to step away. Sometimes, it's warranted to speak up, speak back, speak your truth, right? Because you're trying to correct something. You can't be a doormat, then you're going to get sick with something else. It's just, right? Because it's creating the balance. So of course we're going to show our emotions, but how angry, are we going over that tipping point and just, coming into a rage? It's learning to express that anger in a healthy way, right? So it's not, yelling at people and being mad at them. I don't think I've done that probably not in the last 30 years, because it's just not part of who I am or who I deal with people. I would rather than bring it up and say, hey, we got an issue here, and let's talk about this. It depends if you know the person, or if it's just somebody that's being a jerk and you're driving on the freeway, right? But sometimes when people are being jerks and they're weaving in and out of traffic and they're honking and they're just being a jerk the way they're driving. I mean, many times I just say, oh, okay, spirit world, please send this person some love, because they're in a rage and they're going to cause an accident. So let's send this guy some love, because he doesn't know how to drive. So I always turn those situations around to something like that, because they're still going to feel that. They're still, hopefully they'll calm down and they didn't cause an accident because you sent that love.
Okay.
Because we're all connected.
Before we wrap up, if you were to send somebody to a your website, not your book, not your show, where would you recommend out there first before you send them to one of your areas? What's a favorite movie, a favorite book, a favorite author, a favorite healer who's living or passed, or maybe just a location around the world that people should experience where you think the vibe is pretty high. What are some of your favorites?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So, I mean, a place around the earth where the vibe is really high. When I guide people on meditations, I say, think of your favorite spot. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be outside, in a park. It could be in your bedroom. It could be, anything that you feel safe and comfortable. Their favorite spot since your childhood. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a spot that is considered sacred, on the planet Earth. Granted, when you go to those places, you will feel the healing energy, but you can feel that healing energy just being in your favorite spot on a balcony, in your living room, is sitting on your bed, on a floor cushion, in the park, right? Everybody can create that special place for themselves. You don't have to go to these sacred spots around the earth. That's how I look at that.
Okay, now for your, where would you want to send people if they were going to check out something by you? Would it be an appearance on a particular show? Would it be your book? Would it be your show?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many resources. So it depends what people are looking for. Are they looking to understand um how the spirit world or the different levels of the universe is constructed and where the different energies exist? I would say check out Monadic Media on YouTube, right? Because that's a great channel. It's run by Justin Wilkinson. And so that would be a great channel to look at to get better understanding of who we are and how we fit in here. But if you're looking for, I had this traumatic childhood and now I have all these different things going on, and could it be that something is connected to my traumatic experience, then I would say check out Gabor Mate on YouTube. He's done gazillions of interviews and written many different books. So it depends what people are looking for. Are they looking for, I send a lot of people to Ramani Durvasula, who have been in like narcissistic relationships because she is the foremost person on explaining narcissism and narcissistic relationships, whether the parent, the sibling, the boss, or whoever it is that was that person, and may help people understand that. So a lot of these things come up when I work with people in ancestral healing. So, having these different resources to guide them that this is, you come from a narcissistic family system, go watch her videos, because that is the only way that you're going to really start healing, or work with a professional counselor that can help you sort through different things. But so it depends on, what it is that people are looking for. So on my podcast, I interview physicians from different backgrounds. For specifically, I'm very picky about who I interview because I always try to bring on physicians that treat conditions that often fall through the cracks. So people that, I'll see on a medical intuitive, and I'll say, oh, you fall through the cracks. We don't have good tests for that. That's why you're falling through the cracks. Listen to this podcast that I interviewed with this person, right? You're going to start understanding it better. And then can guide them. So I interview a lot of people like that, but I also interview, shamans, mediums from Arthur Findlay College, some of my own teachers that I've had, just to help people create healing spiritually, emotionally, and physically in their life. So it's going to be people from all those different backgrounds, so that people will have the complete package of looking into different areas of their life to create healing.
Beautiful. Just to stick to the theme of the show, I'm going to put up one photo, actually, of 4 archangels. I can do 4. Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel. If you wish, put your hand up and you can feel what you'll feel. Just feel a little bit of light either on your person, in the room. Again, go crazy. Be like, hey, I'll take flowers. I'll take ocean. Lati, what are you feeling on your hand, on your body? You can ask for bigger whooshes that carry and ripple through the day and through the upcoming weekend even. Blame me and the show for an entire week. Why not? But it's really angels, as you always say. What are you feeling?
I feel warmth on my hand.
Yay, perfect. And at home, do it any which way. If you're trying too hard on your hands, you'll get sparkles on your toes. It's never quite the way you think. And with that, could you address that in the big picture in life? There's so many expectations. There's so much of the way we think it needs to unfold, whether it's love, career, business, health, spirituality, or just tapping that inner collective wisdom that already exists. Can you talk to us that last little, you've been there. I mean, it's like getting your teeth pulled in one sense, but not that bad, hopefully. You've been living and breathing it this whole time. If anybody has been the inner fearless, peaceful warrior walking this path, and you've had to take a lot of steps, what do we need to know about this whole, again, letting it unfold more, getting out of here, getting out of our own way, getting to here, and actually using what you've got inherently?
Right. Exactly. It's a journey. So, right. Nothing happens overnight. And there are times when I feel like, oh my gosh, did I lose the connection to the spirit world? So I went to med school in 2012 when I was 54, and I did that based on messages from spirit. So I received a message going from my living room to the kitchen, and I was looking on the computer for what should I do when I go back to work? Because I knew I couldn't go back working as a programmer. And I came across this school, and it said naturopathic medicine. I was like, wow, well, how cool is that? Like, it's all medicine, but you learn botanical medicine and homeopathy and acupuncture, and you learn all the Western medicine and all the pharmaceuticals. And then I realized it was a real medical school. And I said, oh, I can't do that. I'm in my 40s. I can't do that. I mean, even if I do all the prereqs, biology, chemistry, organic chemistry, physics, math, all that, right? There's no guarantee they're even going to accept me because I'm going to be older, an older student. So I closed the computer and started walking towards the kitchen, and the spirit world drops in. And the spirit world says, you have to become a naturopathic doctor. You have to go to med school. You have to combine East and West. You're to bring messages and healing to the people. And you are to write 2 books. No, wait, 3. And my response was, what do you mean writing books? I've never thought of myself as an author. What am I supposed to write about? And the answer was, when the time is right, we will let you know. And I said, what do you mean bringing messages and healing? What do you mean messages? When the time is right, we will let you know. For now, just focus on getting your degree. And I was literally enrolled in the prereqs for med school within 2 weeks. So I immediately enrolled. It was, beginning of August. So I immediately enrolled. Classes were starting in like 2 or 3 weeks. And I had to start from the beginning. I had to take high school advanced placement biology because I couldn't even get into freshman biology because I was a business major as an undergrad. And I didn't have any of the high school because I went to high school in Sweden. So I was a language major. And so it's very different. And so I started that journey and then was accepted into medical school in 2012. And I was 54 at the time, graduated in 2016, went straight through, did the science board after 2 years, did the clinical boards after the second 2 years. And then as soon as I graduated, that's when the spirituality part immediately opened up. And met this woman who was a medium. We were just supposed to have dinner. We met at this conference thing. And she said, oh, you have to go to Arthur Findlay College. And so 6 months later, that was the first time I was there. And that was the spring of 2017. But that journey of having to trust in the spirit world and receiving the message of you're to write 2 books, no wait, 3. I've gotten that 4 times, and it's always the exact same message. Oh, your mother is here. And I gotten it twice from the teachers at Arthur Findlay College, and nobody knew I was writing a book. And she said, oh, you're right. Your mom says you're writing a book. Oh no, oh, you're writing 2 books. No, wait, 3. And so it's always that 2, no, wait, 3. And that's the message comes through exactly the same way every single time. And so the title of the book is Med School After Menopause, The Journey of My Soul. And that was also given to me from the spirit world. So I got the first part of the title, Med School After Menopause. I was in my last year. And I said to the spirit world, I said, all right, I'm here. What am I supposed to do with this? And the whole time I was in med school, the spirit world pretty much just said, focus on your degree, focus on graduating. I'm like, I said, that's it. I've lost it. I've lost the connection. I would get other messages, but I couldn't sort of get guidance. But then as soon as I graduated, I was sent to Arthur Findlay College, and then that whole spiritual abilities, unfolded. But the second part of that title, The Journey of My Soul, also came from that teacher. She said, oh, yeah, your mom says that the book is about the journey of your soul. And so I knew that that was the second part of the title, because I had only given me the first part, Med School After Menopause, The Journey of My Soul. And so that whole, the whole unfoldment of becoming a medium really started in 2017. And that was, I mean, I've been here in the spirit world since 1992, but the professional training to tune into that started in 2017.
Mm.
So it's all about just, the unfoldment. It's not, nothing happens over time, because when you think about it, 4 years in med school, I got the same message, and I call it the lull periods now, because when I work with clients, they say, I used to get all these messages and now I don't get anything. And I said, you're just in a lull period. Think of it as that divine clock is ticking in the background. And there is a time that is right when things are supposed to fall into place. And you're just in this part of your life right now when you're just perfecting something, you're honing your skills on something. Keep meditating, keep tuning in, keep, your awareness of your surroundings. Is that animal giving you, is that bird that shows up every single day on your windowsill and you don't even have a bird feeder? Why does that bird keep landing there and staring at you every breakfast? Look up, look up the bird. Does it have a message for you? I mean, you could ask the bird and say, do you have a message for me? But sometimes people don't get the message. Then I would say, just Google it and say, I see this, red bird. And, what kind of bird is that? And then say, what is the meaning of that spirit animal? And many times you're going to get messages that way. It's just creating that awareness. We have to have awareness in the physical world before we can create awareness in the spiritual world.
Mm. Beautiful. Got 2 eagles for the first time in Texas. I've never seen eagles since 2007, 2004. I mean, I was visiting the state some before I bought a house here, and I'd been asking for some signs. And the first big sign happened was 3 Mexican eagles. Now, those I know about. The caracaras, they have this sort of a look when they fly, like crosses with white stripes on the wings. Same sort of beak, but much more colorful. They're Mexican eagles, caracaras. So I had 3 of those, 2 on the house. One was, the first one I saw was just flying over me. I thought it was a red-tailed hawk, but I was like, that is big and it's fluffier, and it was just more than a red-tailed hawk. When I stepped around the corner to watch it fly, I looked up on the top of the house. There were 2 more up there, and I was like, whoa, that's a signal, like, moment. It's like stop, drop, and roll. And so I had a moment, and then I really was for a couple days asking for a sign, and 2 eagles showed up on the tree out back, which I've never seen real eagles here. And I mean, I know Texas, everywhere in America should have them. But the next day it was 1 roadrunner, and I paused the car. There was no traffic. It's in the community, a small community. And I'm watching the roadrunner, and I became aware there was a second roadrunner. So it was 2. Hoist the fun. And I couldn't believe it. And I was really thankful that I paid attention. And so my message for folks is, if you don't ask, you don't get. Allow with a capital A. From here, you don't have to know anything about anything. Just put the request out and wear a catcher's mitt. Just trust that the universe knows what it's doing. It's bigger than we think it is. It's not about thinking. It's about less thinking. And see what happens. Can you give us one more of those? If it was later in the week, might there be a request you're putting out at some point? Or do you do daily requests, or at least twice a week? Do you make, hey, I could use some more fun and sizzle in that one client who's come to me and says, my life's perfect. I just wanted to have more fun. Lotte, what can you do for me? What's your request you're putting out to the universe once in a while, if you can share it out loud?
I mean, I work with the universe or the spirit world every single day. So it is just part of my life at this point. I'll, before I go to bed at night, I'll say, thank you. I'm grateful for what's given to me and the guidance I'm receiving. And, sometimes I'll ask for guidance. Should I do this? Should I do that? And, which should I study this class? Should I take a course in this? Our clients going to be looking for that? And so I'm always communicating with the spirit world and asking for guidance, either before I meditate or before I go to bed, typically.
And in most of those instances, if I can ask, is it instant, or do you get dream time after that? So it's overnight, or you get clear signals the next day, or it's a combination of all the above?
I would say it's a combination. So sometimes you can get answers right away. You ask a question, you go into a meditation, you're given an answer, right? So I always tell clients, if you have a question, then ask the question and then meditate and see what information comes. And sometimes we don't get any information, and I would say that sometimes it's because we have to make that decision. We live in a free will world. And so you have to sometimes make your own decisions. And then once you make that decision, let's say you're thinking of taking a new job. Is this the right job? Should I take this job or that job? But they're not going to tell you, right? The spirit world is not going to interfere with your free will. So they can guide you and they might be really excited about something. And then when you make the decision, it's like the spirit world gets all excited about it because we have to take that step. We have to make our own decisions as well. We can ask for guidance, but they're typically not going to say, is it A or is it B? That's
Okay.
your decision.
Very last thing here, and then we'll close the show down. But if a Native American chief named Dullknife said, "Life is a feast, partake," what's your advice in a parallel sort of thing, like, to have more fun, live, love, and the rest? What's your final bit of advice for those watching?
I would say, always trust in your path. It's all about, trusting. Sometimes things are going to go wrong, but there's also sometimes it's supposed to go wrong because you're supposed to have that experience, right? It sounds kind of crazy. Sometimes why would I ask for something to go wrong? Well, sometimes, I was sick for many years. I didn't ask for that, but because I became this person. Now, granted, we try to make sense of our difficult experiences. There's always that. But to a certain extent, I would say we incarnate with a movie script because so many things are in our astrological charts, including my near-death experiences. So, I definitely incarnated to have that journey, and it was difficult at the time, but I came out of that being somebody else and just going through life and trust that everything is as it should be at every single moment. We don't understand why, but you just have to have that faith.
Wonderful. Dr. Lotte Valentin from Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you so much. Wonderful having you on Angels, Positivity, and Love. It was a real treat.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.